We hear a lot in the news about organ transplants, but less is known about tissue donors and donation. Lots of islanders have indicated they're interested in donating organs and tissue. 72% of people who have a driver's license on PEI have a red heart, indicating that they want to be donors. But last year, only 4 islanders made tissue donations. The organ and tissue donation manager for Prince Edward Island believes that number could grow significantly with more awareness. Island Morning's Nancy Russell has the story of 2 island women whose lives have been changed thanks to donated tissue.
Tessa Roach hops on an exercise bike here at UPEI. Roach played varsity soccer and hockey at the university, then for a semi-pro soccer team in Toronto. But a wrong step on the turf in January 2013 seriously damaged her knee. To fix it, doctors turned to donated tissue.
I had tore my ACL when I was playing soccer over in the Stratford complex. I just planted my foot and tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus. So I got the surgery, and when they went in to do the surgery, they generally cut out your hamstring and use that to reattach the ACL. But when he took mine out during surgery, my legs were really short. So he said, your leg is my hamstring was too short, so they wouldn't have been able to reattach the ACL without getting the tissue.
My name is Angela Carpenter, and I'm the Organ and Tissue Donation and Transplant Manager for PEI. The tissues that can be donated are your eyes, your skin, your bones, your tendons, and heart valves. One donor can provide up to 75 tissue grafts. So even if our number of donors is very small, the impact can be huge, because 75 tissue grafts can go a long way. Last year, 2014, there were 16 referrals made to the tissue bank, and 4 of those people became donors. So again, the numbers don't sound very high, but if each of those donors was able to donate 2 corneas, then that would be 8 people who would get their sight back. So it makes a big difference, even small numbers.
Angela Carpenter says she'd like to see more islanders donating tissue. She was hired as the Provincial Organ and Tissue Donation and Transplant Manager in 2014, in part to encourage more organ and tissue donations.
There has always been work done on PEI around organ and tissue donation, but it was a little bit here and a little bit there, and it wasn't really coordinated, and one area didn't know what the other area was doing. And so I'm hoping that since I've taken over the job that things have gotten more coordinated and that the lines of communication are clearer and people have a better idea of what's going on the island.
Angela Carpenter says there is lots of room to grow the number of tissue donations.
When I looked at the charts, I did a chart review of everyone who died in hospital in 2014, and there were probably another 30 people or so who could have been referred, but staff didn't have the education and the processes and everything in place at the time, so those referrals weren't made. So we're hoping that this year the numbers will increase and that every year from now on we'll have more and more.
Angela Carpenter says part of the challenge is raising awareness about tissue donations.
I think it's because organ donation has a much bigger impact. It saves people's lives. If you don't get that heart transplant, you're going to die. Whereas with tissues, in most cases, there is another alternative. So, for example, with heart valves, you can have mechanical heart valves. You can have pig heart valves. So, in most cases, tissue donations aren't the only option, but they're the best option. The most compelling stories are probably the people who've had their sight restored, because having your sight is just it's so important for independence and looking after your children and, all of the things that we take for granted that you wouldn't be able to do if you couldn't see. So people who've had cornea transplants, they're probably the most vocal about how appreciative they are.
For former Montague Mayor Pat McGowan, a tissue graft saved her life. In 2008, she developed a rare infection after surgery to repair a broken leg.
The infection grew and grew and grew. And in the meantime, it was eating away at the bones in my leg. And at that point, the doctor was going to remove my leg. In that period, I had 8 operations, and one of those operations involved bone tissue. And at that point, I didn't know there was a bone bank. So they put new bone in my leg, and it probably was 6 months to a year, having a lot of x-rays, we saw the bone actually grow. And that's the first that I knew that I was going to be able to save my leg. To see the new bone on the x-ray growing, it was quite an experience.
Like I say, a lot of people know about organ donation and, people who've had kidney transplants and liver transplants, but not a lot of people talk about their tissue transplants, so not a lot of people even know that that's a possibility.
Pat McGowan says she's happy to help spread the word.
I know very little apart from organs. I knew next to nothing, but now we realize how important it is to get the word out there to people.
And what would you say to the family of the person who donated the tissue to you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You saved my leg.
Would you want to be a tissue donor yourself?
Absolutely. I've signed my card. And yes, I certainly will be. If there's any parts usable, they can use them.
Back at UPEI, Tessa Roach says she's grateful to the family that donated the tissue used to help fix her knee.
To me, it was really important because without reconnecting it or anything, I would have like a very unsteady knee, and it would be really unstable. Unstable, sorry, and I wouldn't be able to play any sports anymore, which I still play sports at a pretty competitive level, so I would have had to just completely stop. So that would have been a huge part of my life gone.
Would you be interested in being a tissue donor?
Yeah, if it helped someone like it helped me, I think I would definitely do that.
For Island Morning, I'm Nancy Russell in Charlottetown.
And tomorrow here on the show, Nancy Russell will be back with details on what is being done to boost the number of tissue donations, including a new provincial registry. So that's tomorrow right here on 96.1 FM.